You're listening to Neuma, the Crossroad of Science and Enlightenment. This podcast is a place where science meets soul and healing meets hope, where the latest in science meets ancient wisdom to illuminate the path toward healing and transformation. We break through stigma and misinformation to explore the transformative power of psychedelic therapy, holistic health, and the mind-body connection. Through stories, insight, and expert conversations, we provide practical solutions to help you reclaim your mental health, embrace your spirituality, and achieve true enlightenment. Hosted by Alan Wiederhold, author of the book Walking in the Garden, Discovering God Through Psychedelics. Alan is the consummate explorer, passionate about empowering others to embrace the divinity of their true selves, as well as the founder of Neuma Health, whose mission is to restore and transform lives. Here's your host, Alan Wiederhold.
All right, so I am back from PsychCon Denver, and I just had a couple of thoughts that I wanted to get out on this show today. For those of you who may be first-time listeners or just happen to find this podcast, my name is Alan Wiederhold. I am the CEO and founder of a new startup company called Neuma Health, and I am so excited to be able to kind of share this journey. So I held up this book. So I'm a trauma survivor. I was sexually abused as a child and never told anyone. And the problems that come with that are incredibly big. I mean, I don't even know how else to say that. I defined everything by success. I defined everything by almost this narcissistic tendency to outperform in everything that I could for as long as I could remember. You know, if there was a sale or a fundraiser at school, I would work the phones. I would go door to door. I always had this crazy need to win. And that's how I found worth. I found worth in being good enough or outperforming everyone. What I didn't realize, though, is that, you know, growing up in that kind of an identity, it's good and bad. I was able to really mask, I guess, a lot of the things that kind of happen. You know, I talk very openly in this book that I wrote, Walking in the Garden, Discovering God Through Psychedelics, about this experience, because, you know, when I got to 7th and 8th grade, I kind of felt like I had not really matured a whole lot yet. I got to high school and I was called gay or a homo because I'm Mexican and I couldn't grow hair. And when you're called these things and you're bullied, and then you have this trauma that happened to you, you start to question like everything. Like, is this all real? Am I gay? Did they see something in me that I didn't see in myself? I mean, I always liked girls, I thought. And then you end up going down this other road where you do so much to prove that you're not gay, that you hurt a lot of people along the way, a lot of girls. Some call it puberty, some call it sowing wild oats, some call it, I don't know. But for me, it was like this wake of destruction. And I went into the military and I served my country. I went through the Gulf War and through the Yugoslav Adriatic Missile Crisis. I saw an amazing world, but I saw a lot of other things that were traumatic as well. It wasn't until I got out of the military and I got out of college that I started building a successful career. I had the dream jobs. I was making crazy amounts of money. I had the college sweetheart. I mean, things were great. Nothing was enough. I kept telling myself that, you know, if I could just get to this, then I would be okay. And then when I got to there, I would just get to here. And the goalposts kept moving. And it was an interesting conversation that we had with Matt Zeman a couple of episodes ago, and that illusion of moving the goalposts. So in my despair, I guess you could call it, I had hit rock bottom, and I didn't really know where else to go. See, I had secrets. Not only was I molested, but I had thought about killing myself for as long as I could remember. Never did it, but I thought of all of these ways. I would lay in bed next to my wife and I would crawl into this dark, dark hole. And I didn't understand why. I grew up in a Christian home. I went to Bible college. I knew all of this stuff, but God just wasn't real. It wasn't real for me in the way that I needed him to be. It was a lot of rules and it was a lot of don't do this, but it was more fire insurance than it was salvation. I always felt like I was being saved from and not saved to. And as we kind of unwrap my personal thoughts and feelings around this topic in later episodes, um, it really had a really profound impact on me. I remember leaving Bible college in my freshman year and saying, you know what, done. And I basically walked away from God through the military and through the college and all this other stuff. And God was just nowhere in my life. But as I was hitting these rock bottoms, the only way that I could get out, I could see was I didn't even know. But then I had all these friends that were getting these psychedelic assisted therapy things and treatments and facilitations. And I didn't even know what any of it was. But I knew they were coming back different. I knew they were coming back free. They were no longer held to the same things that had held them back before. And I didn't understand that. And I was very, very resistant. And I talk a lot about this in all of my episodes. I remember sitting with my mentor, my coach, and we're on a deck in Dana Point, California. And all these guys are having all these incredible breakthroughs. And I say, no, it's drugs. It's not godly. It's not Christian. I wasn't even living a Christian life. I was afraid. And the reality of I had no exposure to any of this stuff. So why would I want to do something that I didn't even know? So I start to ask questions and I start to really dive into this. And I started watching documentaries. I started really reading as much as I could. And then I made this decision to go. Thanks for listening to this episode of Neuma, the Crossroad of Science and Enlightenment. We hope you're enjoying the deep dive into psychedelics, neuroplasticity, and the path to transformation. Before we continue, let's discuss recovery. After powerful experiences, your mind deserves more than just rest. It needs real support. That's where Neuma Hydrate comes in. Formulated with GABA, taurine, inositol, magnesium, and more, Neuma Hydrate is designed to help your brain recover faster and support neuroplasticity, giving you the clarity and the energy to fully embrace your journey. Fuel your recovery and elevate your mind with Neuma Hydrate. Check out neuma.health to learn more. Now, enjoy the rest of the episode. Now, one of the things that I find unique about the way that I went through my first experience and the way that I actually do facilitations now is that I have the actual journey itself recorded. I have the music, the set, the setting, the preparation, but then I have myself and the person actually going through medicine, listening to music and speaking their own truths, free of ego. I had the strangest thing happen to me this week. And it was so awesome because when I started in this endeavor a year and a half ago, I wanted to get involved. I wanted to be able to go back into the community and to be able to help have conversations from a business perspective, to let other people know that it was okay to not have all the answers and broken, I guess is the only way I would use to describe myself, and that it was okay. And I remember in May, I had organized a community conversation at my club. around psychedelics and PTSD and trauma. And what I thought was initially going to be for veterans like myself, it ended up being community leaders of Baltimore, where I live. Baltimore is a trauma identified city. And there was so many amazing people and so many conversations that took place that day. And I remember standing outside and witnessing all of this. And as we were wrapping up, I nodded my head and I said, I cannot believe this is going on and this happened. How did I get here? I laughed. And one of the panelists that I had invited to join me on this conversation said, you made this happen. You put yourself into the ring and brought all this together. And now what are you going to do with it? I didn't really have an answer. I knew that I had a book in me that I had to get out. I knew that I had a story that I thought maybe other people could benefit from, with the same struggles and the same questions and the same thoughts that I had. And then I wrestled. I wrestled with the idea of creating a book. I wrestled with the idea of God condoning, or at least allowing, psychedelic-assisted medicine to find him. There are so many people who use the book of Peter and say sound mind, sober mind. There are so many meanings to that. But if it's a tool that connects you closer to God, why is it bad? So last week, I'm standing on this stage at the psychedelic convention in Denver, Colorado. Again, I put myself in the middle of this conversation. And as I'm standing up there telling my story about walking in the garden with God, discovering God through psychedelics, and the future of clinical hydration, which is what Neuma is all about, connecting people to the earth and to clinical hydration. A pastor of a church, a very, very, very well-known large church, sat in the front row. And as we neared the end of the conversation, she came up to me during the day and she said, I had to find you. Do you remember me? She said. And I laughed and I said, I did. You were sitting in the front row, if my memory serves me correct. This was the second time since I started putting myself into the ring that I'd actually had a conversation on the stage. And she said, I Googled psychedelics and Christianity and your name came up. And I flew here to hear you speak. And God said to me, listen to him. He's anointed. I had no response to that. I was just standing up there speaking my truth. But what I found so fascinating about this convention, this first one that I'd been in outside of the small circle of things that I had created internally, was this old in this new. Now, when I look at myself and what I've created with Neuma and Hydrate and the connection of the community through an app and all of the things, I like to call myself a modern mystic. I'm not a psychonaut. I don't really love the word psychedelics, don't like the word Christian. I am a follower of the way. But to hear someone say, I'm anointed, it really got me thinking, because as I was managing the booth with my team, and I was standing there talking to people and hearing their stories, I got to see a lot of the old and the new. There were these really awesome people who were next to me with the tie-dye shirts, with the mushrooms, and the legacy of the old, of the Grateful Dead and the Deadhead legacy and Haight-Ashbury and the hippie movement and tuning in and dropping out. And then you had people like myself who was searching from an entrepreneurial business aspect, from the people that I have been able to work with and lead who are other businessmen who are searching. Is there a right or a wrong? Is there a future or a past with this searching? There were other people that I had met that I had laughed because they were so tuned in and dropped out that they could barely put things on their display, and we helped. But then there were other people that you could tell that had a passion for healing. And they were doing it from a different frame. They were doing it from a business frame. They were doing it as entrepreneurs, or they were doctors or nurses or PhDs or people that had the academic mind and were combining the new and the old. So the modern mystic with the old, either ceremonial, indigenous, or hippie, as we had talked about before. It was a term that Michael Pollan used in How to Change Your Mind that has stuck with me for all of these years. The white coat shamanism, how this new era is people who are combining science and enlightenment. This is what is fueling me. This is what gets me excited. So as I'm standing on the stages and I'm talking to these mega pastor churches who say, I'm wrestling with all of this, but I believe that God is telling me that there is a place for this. And right now I am walking by a mushroom booth and I cringe. And I don't know why. And I simply said to her, let's just connect and talk. Let's talk this through. We're at a very interesting crossroad right now in mental health. Right now, we're at a very interesting crossroad as we're trying to clinicalize and monetize ceremonial and psychedelic use, or what we would call entheogens and empathogens, as we talked about with Matt, and how we combine that with assisted therapy or with integration. And the more that we dive into this, I go back and I keep asking myself, what was it that was the deciding factor for me? Because God was not in the equation. When I did this, there was no thought process of connecting to a God or to a creation or anything else. It was simply just to find myself to be free. I got way more than I had bargained for. And I'm looking forward to sharing all of those things on this show. My name is Alan. I'm the CEO of Neuma Health, and this is Neuma, the Crossroad of Science and Enlightenment.